Great Blacks in Wax extended tour shuttle bus tours. We have 3 young people who are our docent trainees. They will be the tour guides for your tours today. We have 3 stops that we're going to make. The Civil War Museum, the Lily Mae Carroll Museum, and the Hampton Mansion. We're going to make up some time with the Civil War Museum, so that's going to be a little quick, and I would expect by the time we get to Lily Mae Carroll that we'll be back on schedule. So welcome everyone. It is an educational experience today. You'll get to learn about Black history in Baltimore City. Sit back and enjoy yourselves. Oh, and I'm sorry, our docents are...
My name is Donald Meredith.
Okay.
My name is Makai Stewart.
My name is Tanaya Nash.
Hey.
And my name is Tanaya Nash.
Yeah, that's wonderful. All right, wonderful. And my name is Miss Mary. We have our photographers here today. They will be videoing the tours that will take place. We have Miss Loretto, who is a producer. We have Mr. John, producer and videographer. And we have Mr. Lorenzo, producer and videographer. And Miss Loretto is the lead for what's happening today. We also have Mr. Rowland, who is a tour guide. He helps in the training of the docents. We have Miss Janice, also a tour guide and a trainer for the docents. And we have Miss Jolly, who keeps us paid and whatever else needs to go on in the museum. She's the person to talk to and go to. We have other guests on the bus. If you would just kind of introduce yourself and say how you...
I'm Deborah Pierce Hakunle, board member since the museum started. I was a part of the traveling exhibit. So my life has been at the National Great Blacks in Wax Museum.
Wonderful. Sir in the back.
I am Marcus.
And
My daughter Faith. She's 4 years old. She was in a plane here like a month ago.
all right.
For the street fair.
Yeah, the street fair.
From Woundworks.
You with Woundworks?
Yeah.
Okay, they're with the Woundworks program. And we also have Miss Jolly's grandson. Call us your name again.
My name is Jairon Jolly.
Speak up, baby.
My name is Jairon Jolly.
Okay, can you hear you?
My name is Jairon Jolly.
Jairon Jolly. Very nice name. Alrighty then, we're ready. Oh, and we also have a very important person here, Mr. Damon, who is our bus driver. And my guest, my sister-in-law, Veronica Daniel. She's with us today.
We're traveling on Broadway, which is one of the major cities here in Baltimore, and it leads to Johns Hopkins Hospital. Broadway has an island in the center, and you'll notice that it continues all the way down to Lombard Street. The island is used for people exercising and just kind of sitting around. We're also on one of the larger streets in the city, and back in historical days, this was a street that only white people lived on. African Americans were not allowed on any of the large streets here in Baltimore City. A lot of these houses have 4, 5, and as we go west, some of them have 7 bedrooms in them. That tells you what size families people had back in the day. A lot of the blacks lived in this neighborhood, but they lived in what we call alleys, in the backs of these big houses. Why? Because you work in these houses. You will also notice that the houses have marble steps, which is a big deal here in Baltimore, and a lot of people come to see the marble steps in the city. and that was one of our claims to fame. It's very easy to clean them. You know about Ajax soap, Ajax scouring powder, shake it on there, get yourself a scrub brush, and it shines like crystal. So as we go along, you'll see where some of the steps people are trying to take care of them and they're moving to improve. We're coming up on Johns Hopkins Hospital, one of the most famous hospitals in the world. It's either #1 hospital, #2 hospital, and then back to #1 as far as services are concerned. And everybody wants to get their degree from Hopkins Hospital. They have...
I say not everybody. My daughter didn't know that.
Oh, shame on her.
She didn't like Hopkins.
When we cross this corner, Hopkins owns, on your left-hand side, all of those properties. That's a part of the Hopkins community. And they're making it available to people who are studying at the school so they have some place to live. There's Kennedy Krieger Institute. As we come up, Kennedy Krieger was this one little building that we're passing, and now they have at least 3 other buildings that are part of the Kennedy Krieger Institute. Hopkins has a venture to take over or try to buy up this whole side all the way over to Patterson Park is what they're planning to do so that they can make it look better around.
And if you keep up with it, you'll notice that 3 universities, Hopkins, University of Maryland, are east and west, taking over the neighborhoods downtown for urban renewal.
Gentrification.
That's the
Hopkins, I say Hopkins is trying to connect this medical campus to the university campus.
That's it.
Everything that's in between is going to be knocked down.
Hospital. And it's also been in I don't know how many movies. They pretend it's someplace else, but it's a part of Hopkins. So those who haven't paid any attention to it, that's the tower there of the original That's the original hospital there. And also take note to the fact that Hopkins has its own subway stop. If you need to get to Hopkins from someplace else that the subway rides, Hopkins has its own stop. But that's the original building. Well, on your right-hand side, we're coming up to Wilmer Eye Clinic. They service people who have any kind of eye conditions. It was a small building to the east of Hopkins, and they've moved it over on this side where most of the campus is. So here's Wilmer Eye Clinic. Now when we come up to this stop light, this blinking light, if you look to your left, you'll see the tower that was the original building for Johns Hopkins Hospital. And it's also been in I don't know how many movies. They pretend it's someplace else, but it's part of Hopkins. So those who haven't paid any attention to it, that's the tower there of the original. Yeah, that's the original hospital there. And also take note to the fact that Hopkins has its own subway stop. If you need to get to Hopkins from someplace else that the subway rides, Hopkins has its own stop. But that's the original building there. On your left-hand side is the Quaker Meeting House, and it is also part of the Underground Railroad. That building right over there. Right on the corner there. Yeah, that's a Quaker Meeting. It's part of the Underground Railroad. And Carroll Mansion. You just passed the shot tower, which was used during the Civil War for getting ammunition for the Civil War soldiers. And on the end there is the first mansion for the Carroll family on Baltimore. That has the white. See, there's a man from here every day.
To your left hand, right hand side, my left hand side, is the Civil War Museum. This building began construction in May 1849, but it opened publicly February the 18th, 1850. The building, the brick was painted brown to resemble brownstone, which was a popular building product back in the day. The building was $8,812.73. George Parker designed the railroad station, and the construction engineer was Isaac Risley Temple. So the same people that own the Risley Mansion is the same people that own the Civil War Museum. It was originally the P.W.B. Railroad Station, Philadelphia, Wilmington, and Baltimore Railroad Station. That's the Civil War Museum.
I want to sign you. She could have stayed.
We got to have the name, and you'll see that Richmond didn't lose their property. And the question is, why did they lose their property? If they were Confederate sympathizers.
We want to come in quickly for about 5 or 10 minutes and just look around and then come back and then we'll allow us to go in there. For 5 or 10 minutes, no worries. I'm going to let the bus driver know. So we're going to go in for about 5 or 10 minutes. Okay. So you can sit around if you want. You can go inside.
Oh, thank you so much.
Oh, go ahead. No.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. But I do have to get around.
I didn't even bring my card.
You're still outside.
The museum here concentrates on the Baltimore riots of 1861, when the first people were actually killed during the Civil War. War started. North wanted to send troops to Washington, D.C. Means you have to come through Baltimore, more specifically, you can come through this building right here. This is the President Street Station. It's built in 1850. It's the oldest remaining urban station in the United States. And at the time of the war, it was the terminal for the Philadelphia Railroad lines coming down the East Coast to wind up right here. At which point, you have to get on the horse cars and go across town and get the train to Washington, D.C. from the B&O station on the other side of town, because they won't allow locomotives downtown. They're too dangerous. And when the Southern sympathizers in town realized the troops would be coming through, they formed a mob to try to stop them from making the transfer between the stations. And this results in the presidential election of 1860 for the city of Baltimore. Maryland was a slave state. It was very evenly divided between the secessionists and the unionists, although Lincoln himself wasn't very popular here. But it was about a 50-50 split, and Maryland wound up furnishing troops to both sides of the war, what they call a border state. All of this happened 1 week after the first shots were fired at Fort Sumter, as the 6th Massachusetts Regiment got on the train in Boston and got off here at the station April 19th. That'll give the details what happened then. And we got more on the occupation and aftermath over here. On the back we got a bit on the Underground Railroad, which would use the station from time to time, and the colored troops, USCT colored troops that Baltimore furnished during the war. And over there, we got this 15-minute video that we'll repeat after a while. Otherwise, if you have any questions, let me know.
Yeah, what's that?
That's the 6th Massachusetts regimental flag. All regiments have their own flag, you know, logo or something on it. Yeah?
What about the bottom?
Okay, our former head, who died recently, was a model railroad guy. And he liked putting up these railroad displays. When the circus closed down a couple of years ago, he put up a memorial to it. It has nothing to do with the Civil War, but when the head guy wants to do something, you go ahead and do it. Here it is. Yeah, there's one of the USCT regimental flags over there.
P.T. Barnum.
Civil rights. Oh, that, I don't know. We do that for the Halloween. Nobody bought it. It's usually popular. Yeah. Started out when they first got in the Army.
Time to get back on the bus to head to the next location. I'm so sorry to cut this short. Time to get on the bus.
Got some good ones.
Time to get on the bus. Time to get on the bus and make up our time. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah, right here.
My name is Tanaya Nash. I will be explaining briefly about the Lily Mary Carroll Museum before we go in to be guided by a docent inside the museum. Lily Mae Carroll Jackson was born in on May 25th, 1889. She was an activist and she was an organizer for the NAACP, and she worked alongside people like Martin Luther King, Thurgood Marshall, etc. And she was an activist that changed many things, and that helped with equity amongst African Americans and permitted them to go into some schools in Baltimore. What else to say? She valued faith, education, and family. That was one of her most prized things that she held close to her heart. And she also had health complications that you will further learn inside the museum. And she had to get a surgery which affected the muscles in her face, and it affected her speech and her facial expressions, and she usually took pictures on the other side where the damage was done. She said she would dedicate herself, and she prayed to the Lord that if her face remained and if her health pulled through, that she would dedicate herself to serving her people for the betterment of African Americans and to have integration and to be equal. Lily Mae Carroll was an activist who helped her child get into that school. One of her daughters also married Clarence Mitchell Jr., and he was also an activist who did many things to promote equity amongst African Americans. Her child, or her daughter, is the director of the museum, and she coordinates most of the things that happens inside of it. Her mother wanted, or Lily Mae wanted to have the museum dedicated to be her home to be a museum when she passed, so people can know what happened in the past. There's a lot of pictures and artifacts and stuff. Well, not artifacts really, but items in her home that was hers. When you go in, there is an orientation room in the back where her graduation dress and a picture was shown in the back with her holding, I believe, was either her diploma or her degree. When you walk in, I believe that was the banner for the NAACP. When people were lynched or hanged, they would put that banner outside, and I believe it was like a man was lynched yesterday or today, and they put that out there to raise awareness to the people who didn't know. I believe that's it.
So maybe sometime inside, are you going to be the main docent in here?
No, there's going to be somebody that
It'll be, oh, there'll be a guy. Tour guide. We're going to walk up the street to the museum now.
You got me,
Don't be too proud, ladies. Whoever's doing the tour, you said somebody's going to
sign in for me. So you can sign in for
Take that food out of here. Take it out. Go ahead, take it out now. It shouldn't be.
And she would have such guests as Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, Jackie Robinson, And of course, Clarence Mitchell, her son-in-law, and daughter, Juanita Jackson Mitchell. Those names sound familiar, young men in the back, the tall guys. Were you here before?
Yeah, I was here.
Okay, all right, so I can ask you lots of questions, right? So, welcome, welcome. Now, I'm gonna take you this way. Did anybody notice this when they walked in?
Yeah.
George Arnold, 1933.
Not only did they lynch him, pull him from the jail, lynch him, cut off his ear, various forms of mutilation, they also set him ablaze. This was not unlike many lynchings in the U.S. where there were crowds watching. EJI, Equal Justice Initiative, you heard of that?
Yes.
Brian Stevenson, it's documented over 4,000, maybe 4,500 racially motivated lynchings in America. Maryland had about 44. It's not nearly as many as the thousands or so in Mississippi, Alabama, where else? Louisiana. Well, it's still 44 too many, right?
Yes.
So you'll see references to that really kind of got people going about issues in the United States, here in Maryland as well. Okay, we're gonna go watch her. You didn't have time for the documentary before, did you? You might want the elevator. The others are going to go all the way up to the third floor to the room all the way in the back. And that's where we're going to start.
upstairs, get downstairs.
Alright, so, here you see the family. What you didn't hear is how Miss Jackson, and most of her photographs, she's turned to the side. But I'm gonna ask Kai to share with us why she, it stands like, oh,
It's
so I asked you.
yeah, she had the surgery that went bad and ended up messing up the whole right side of her face. So when she took pictures, she always let the left side of her face be seen. Found a photograph. And that's what I know about that.
Okay. She had surgery, had mastoiditis, and it was at Johns Hopkins when, this part's critical, when they would take blacks to the basement. Y'all not videotaping me, right? So,
No, huh? Stop it. No, he's getting the car.
Cal's over there. Yeah, you can see, I can get the car. Or, where's my other friend?
We went to the restroom.
Oh, okay. And here's the friend that you gave me. And what is your, I can't hear you before I met you. Okay, what is your name? Tanaya. Nice to meet you again. All right, so that was, it was in the basements they would take African Americans. Well, of course, you know, the care wasn't the same. And so as a result of that, it was a botched surgery that severed her mastoid nerve. So things were not working the same. And over time, it drooped. Many people thought she had a stroke, but that was not the case. But you see her entire family, extended family. You see Clarence Mitchell, who they called the 101st Senator, daughter, Juanita, who became the first African-American woman to practice law, and her daughter, Virginia, who opened the museum. Now, she wanted to be an artist. She wanted to attend museums, but the doors were closed. Because she was black, as well as she wanted to attend MICA, right around the corner here, Maryland Institute. Doors were closed. So her mother said, don't worry, you'll have your own museum one day, I will help you. She went to school at Pennsylvania School of Art. As Juanita went to University of Pennsylvania, Maryland, if they didn't have the curriculum here at a HBCU, they would pay for you to go out of state to attend a college out of state. Isn't that something? Yeah. So, that's what they did. All right, you don't move your ass. Yes. Yeah, 4 children, 3 girls. Still pop back up, voting. We see voting rights. They come up with new ways. Back then it was what they call poll taxes, or literacy tax, or other kind of tax. Something as simple as having some marbles or some jelly beans in a jar, and you were to guess how many are in the jar. Did anybody know?
No.
That's like a gamble, right?
Yes.
And so, but that's what they want that will be a little better than the others. Just make sure the really bad will never get in. That's the importance of voting. This is a picture of when the NAACP first had its major annual conference here in Baltimore in 1936. And that's because Juanita Mitchell brought them here. She was recognized for her speaking ability. She was a strong speaker. She went to Douglas High and went into these oratory contests. They called them declamation. She would win. She was a powerful speaker even at that age. Now she and her daughter, sister, Virginia was 2 years older, but they graduated at the same time because of that traveling, almost like homeschooling. So she graduates from high school at like 14, goes off to college. So kind of like Martin Luther King, who went as a young man. But what a lot of people don't realize, the founders of the NAACP, a lot of them were white. Such as Cicely. Mary White Ovington, how about that she has white in her name? Walter White, me too. But Walter White Walter White was not white. He identified as black. He looks it, sort of like Miss Jackson's husband. But he would use that to his advantage to, he would go and infiltrate lynch mobs. I know God knows it. In one sense, tell them what this story is about.
So these men were all in training along with these two prostitutes, and these policemen were were nearby, and the prostitutes were afraid of getting caught, so they lied on these men right here, except that they raped them. And even after, a few years later, one of the women even admitted that they lied, and people still believe that these men raped those women.
So it's 9 young men. The youngest was 12 or 13. Yeah, I think but they tried him first because they said he looked guilty. That's the reason we tried him. And but Clarence Mitchell also, as a reporter, went and reported on that and went to Alabama for that. But anyway, Miss Jackson, or Miss Juanita Jackson Mitchell, you'll see her on the cover of Crisis Magazine, which was NAACP's main magazine when she first got hired. So she picketed as a young lady and continued throughout all her years that she was able. Now Clarence, especially you young men, might want to do some research on him.
Some people do that stuff, they will actually not say anything and have everything go with them and complain. Don't stand on this step, don't stand on this step. Somebody's step, somebody's step.
Inside, you can see the cornfield, and instead of picking cotton, that's often what the slaves would do. They would harvested different crops such as tobacco and corn, such things like that. And over there to the left hand side, you can see the milk house. And there was this really cold water stream that would flow through it. And they would store bottles of milk in the water to keep the milk cold.
And they were able to make what?
So we were able to make ice cream and cake. So the next few houses I'll be showing you, these are the slave quarters. These are where the slaves would come after their day job or their work as a slave were over, and it wasn't very furnished because they wouldn't spend a lot of time in here. They would only be in here for enough time just to sleep, and then as soon as they wake up, it'd be right back to work. From the outside, they don't look as bad, but that was only just to give a nice appearance for when they had guests over, because there were frequently guests coming to visit.
Wow. What's upstairs too?
Yeah. Just like I said, these weren't very furnished because they wouldn't spend a lot of time in here. It's very old, It wouldn't just depend on how much time they spent in here. It also depended on your value to the slave master. A child's value wouldn't be the same as an adult's value because a child wouldn't be doing the same labor as an adult. Just as an old man's value wouldn't be the same as a younger man's value because you can get more out of the younger man more than you can the old man. So it all depended on what you were capable of and your age. That's how the overseer would value. They would often put prices on slaves, and they weren't literally. It's not as if they had a certain amount of money to their name. It would more so be they would sell the slaves for that amount of price based on what the overseer or slave owner thought that they were worth.
How many slaves would they hold in this particular?
About 25, 50. They would all be bunched up. It wasn't a hard space.
Right, there was no specific number.
No, how many would live in this space right here? Right.
In this specific space, there really is no specific number, and there really isn't a specific way to tell unless the slave owner was keeping record, which probably wasn't.
I have somebody to introduce you to. The park ranger at this park. Oh, you need to talk to Anna Qualley. Yeah, Anna Qualley. You need to talk to her. She would know, Deborah.
I had the same question. What's that? How many slaves did you put in there? Right. Look like the size of my living room,
But these floors are weird. That was unusual.
They probably did that so that they turned it into a museum. If I remember, it was probably dirty animals.
If you look over here, this is where they would put ashes from the fire and stuff. And they would have this were one of the jobs that the children would do. They would have the children come and collect the ashes so they could then make soap out of them. Just little jobs for the smaller children to do.
What was it?
It was a place where they kept the ashes, where the children had to come get the ashes.
So, like I said, to the slave owner, a slave would have a specific value, and here actually I can show you the exact values. So let's say you were a man of age 25, skilled worker, and you were very strong. The slave owner would value at $800. Let's say you were a female, you were 24, you were skilled domestic, and good for childbearing. You'd be worth $400. I said a teenager, 15, around my age, you could milk the cows, and you'd be worth $200. And let's say a bit younger than me, like 10, you could strong back and can slop the hogs, and you'd be worth $100. And if you were older, like around 65, you could just feed the chickens. So like I said, it wasn't like they had an actual dollar or money to their name. The slave owner would often use them to sell, or let's say it was a specific mortgage or debt, they could use the slaves to pay that debt off.
That's how he recorded his wealth. How he priced the value of slave ship, yeah. For the calendar, like calendar, which one, baby?
Daddy.
Oh, thank you so much.
Excuse me.
You don't want to live here? Take a peek over there.
Whatever I am.
Here it comes. Then you got a slab.
So, alright. The first thing that you would probably notice is that this one has a sink. But just look around at the overall features of the house. This one doesn't have a lot of peeling paint. The floors are more intact. This house was a lot more neater compared to the other slave quarters. And that's because the slaves that lived in this house were probably valued a bit more than the other slaves that were living in the other slave quarters. It would also depend on if you had a big family, you would often be put in a house like this, but not only does it have a faucet, but this one has an actual bed. Often, there weren't necessarily toilets during this time, so there would for the white people, there would be a specific area where they could go, and then for the slaves, it'd be a specific area for where they can go. But in this house, if you look over there at that white pot, you can see that's where some slaves would even go to use their business. They even had a pot and a bed.
And the pot was called a chamber pot. Or slop jar.
You can see it on the other side.
This is in the 30s.
Could you repeat what the pot was called, man?
If you look over to that white pot, it's also known as a chamber pot where the slaves would often do their business.
What, that's a chamber pot?
No, that white pot right there.
White pot right there. That one over there is a furnace. That's just a bucket. Sorry.
So that'd be the equivalent of an indoor bathroom, I'm guessing?
Yeah. And then every once in a while they would empty it.
Every once in a while?
Not every. They wouldn't let it fill it to the point where that's all you could notice and smell.
You cooked on that, and you got your heat out of that.
So they
Pot on there and cooked it. Like the crock pots nowadays, when you sit all day, the pot would sit there while you're out working, and you come in and heat it.
We're now heading back to the house.
What house is that? That was, they come out. Wait for them to come out.
If you look over, just right across from this pathway, this right here is the overseer's house. And the overseer's job was pretty much to just look over the slaves while they did their work and just to make sure that the work was being done.
Who was the overseer?
It wasn't one specific person. to just be somebody that the slave owner could trust to do the job of the overseer.
Somebody white.
Yeah, somebody
Somebody
white.
It's okay to say that.
Somebody that controls the field, somebody that controls cattle, stuff like that.
And who lived in this part right here?
What family?
It was like John
The original what?
This is their original house on this end right here, this one that's going long-wise. That's where they originally lived while the mansion was being built.
Well, it's called Hampton now.
Yeah, well, this area's called the Hampton.
Oh, okay.
The Hamptons.
All right.
You know Hampton?
No, I didn't.
Massachusetts, Hampton, up to the Hamptons.
All right.
But John Ridgely was the owner, and they lived in here for 3 years while they built that mansion house up there.
Okay. Okay, say that, Donald. Say John Ridgely lived in
John Ridgely was actually the original. Him and his family were the original owners of this house before they moved over to that big old mansion over there.
on the top of the hill?
Yes. We're now heading back to the bus.
You got that. Get on the bus.
Get on that bus.
Get on
the bus.
And they built these so that they look good when the
Yes.
yeah.
What guests were they playing on?
Oh, when they had company, they had parties all the time because they were rich, and
They like to show off.
people wanted to come to see them. So what they would do, you can see the mansion house from here.
Right.
So when they looked out off of the porch, when they come up to the house, they were able to see these. Mrs. Ridgely had gone to Europe, and she saw how aesthetic they were. She saw how aesthetic European places were. So she wanted hers to look good, so that when her company, right there on that path, could see how beautiful this looked. You notice the one behind the house you can't see, they don't care. These look good. From the mansion house, if you stand in the mansion house, you see these. You don't see that one. So that's good enough. Alright. It's all for show.
That one look.
It's all for show.
Yeah, it's all for show. They want to put on the facade.
All for
So
show.
look good to the people and they treat us just like everyone else. That's right.
You just lived in one of the show houses. Yeah. Look good to them.
But these bricks,
Wouldn't they tell some tales?
Good morning. How are you?
They have a story to tell.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
And when you go in here, there is a bell in the they would ring, letting you know that it's time to come in out of the feet. When you're inside, right. But when you get up to the mansion, as far as you can see, you can't see the lot right here. Damn. It's like over 2,000 acres. That's a lot. Shoot. 2,000 acres? Yes. And you know you're walking through it all the time. Yes. They had a smelting plant up there. That's what the originally had. So they did iron ore. Remember Civil War? Yeah. Okay. They used that iron ore to make this metal that they needed to go build this. Boy, I really learned something today. My first time here. It will not be the last. All right. Right. It's only a drive at the house. Yep.
Dr. Martin challenged him to do a rap of Strange Fruit. And this is what he did. Alright, John, you got your camera?
I am trying to use this whatever battery power is left.
Yeah.
I got another battery before you start this.
I got enough power.
Alright. John, look up at the ceiling. Look up at the ceiling, and are you ready? This is take one, so
The sweet part about that history, knowledge and point of view. And the sour ain't no mystery, the track that they went through. The canines running at the people that look like man you. From a bird's eye view, you notice that's some strange fruit. Hanging from the pot, the juice smell of burning flesh in the breeze. Bulge your eyes, twist them out, close your eyes and picture me. And the Volvo S60, rolling down the AVE. While let the voice of the city, it's forever rest in peace. Royal G-Statue, the royal bed of marquee. Hit the left on the dolphin, right on that corner, that's all. Never left on division where Thurgood Marshall was living. 1632. Again, the same as other trees bear strange fruit. On the root and at the leaves is blood. Can't change the past, so I rap about what it was. Better style love and my cup. Black bodies for the rain together in the winter sun. I keep messing up,
on the extended tours, I forgot to mention Dr. Martin, Dr. Joanne Martin's name. She is the founder and director of, and she and her husband, Elma Martin, this was their idea to create this museum, so we thank her that we have the programs that come from a part of the National Great Blacks and Wax Museum. And we thank all of you all for coming today. And we hope at another time that you'll come, bring your family members, tell your friends, schoolmates to come to the National Great Blacks and Wax Museum. Thank you so much. If you have any snack bags, bottles, anything, would you please bring those things off the bus? And if you don't have a place to throw it away, give it to me and I'll take care of that. We like to leave the bus spick and span the way it was when we got on. And have a great rest of your day. You too. Thank you. Thank you all so much.